All right, for some reason the system isn't letting me open up. If you remember one of the things that I gave you at the end of last semester, it's out there, I probably could grab it from the syllabus or whatever, but was that Java Quick Syntax reference. It's about a 100-page book. It's got about 20 to 25 chapters in it. They're about 5 pages each or so. But they explain a lot of the terminology. We're going to start creating a new project right now, but in that book they explain what interfaces are. I can't get it to open for whatever reason, so we're just going to start creating some stuff. All right, and as we create it, I'll let you know what it is. If we can get this one program done today, that'd be great. All right, because there's quite a bit to type, there's quite a bit to explain and go over. So what I would like you to do, please, is go out wherever you've got your stuff here, and we've got a Payroll01, 02, etc. We've got all those. So I guess we'll just continue with 6. So I'm going to right mouse click on my source folder, choose new, choose Java class. All right. Now don't go on any further than that, please. Just stop right there. Okay. Why? Because the first thing we're going to create now is an interface. Everything we've created thus far has been a class. We're going to create an interface now. After we create it, I'm going to go through everything that's in it and explain to you what all the stuff in it is. Does that make sense? All right. So choose interface. It is an unwritten rule. You know how constants start with, they're all in capital letters? Interfaces always start with a capital I. It's not that you have to do that, but basically that's supposed to send at least a subliminal message to people that, oh, that's an interface. All right. So to try to stick within those boundaries, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to call it just iPayroll. Again, make sure you choose interface here. Don't choose class. Now, a couple things we're going to look at today. We're going to look at an abstract class. We're going to look at interfaces. We're going to look at inheritance. All right, so there's a lot of stuff to go over. But one of the things I want you to understand, I'm going to click it, on the interface, just double click then or hit enter. Well, okay, it says I already got one by that name because I was goofing around before. So I'll have to call mine, I'll call mine iPayroll06. Whether you call it payroll, iPayroll, or iPayroll06 doesn't mean anything. All right, but that's it. Now, I want you to realize something taking a look here. First thing is real obvious. This is not a class. All right? Since it is not a class, it will not have a main. In fact, it will have virtually no methods in it. And the one method we are going to put in it is a special kind. You'll understand it in just a couple minutes. All right? Java allows you to have single inheritance. We've talked about that in C#, but let's go over it again. What single inheritance means is you can only have one parent. You can't inherit from two different parents. The reason that you're not allowed to inherit from two different parents is if both parents had things that were named the same, there could potentially be clashes. They're called name clashes. Are there ways around that? Of course there are. But most programming languages, not all, but most do not allow for more than single inheritance. That's how Java is. So how do you get around that? Well, when you use inheritance, anybody remember when we used inheritance, even last semester? What was the symbol that we used for inheritance? Does anybody remember? It was a colon, ... So like we had said, we had like, for example, the name of our controller, colon, like controller or something like that, okay? When you do inheritance, which we're going to do in a few minutes, in Java, you don't use a colon, you use the word extends, E-X-T-E-N-D-S. That's the keyword that allows you to do inheritance. We're first going to write an interface. With C#, you can have interfaces, just like we're going to do now. But with C#, whether it's an interface or it's a class, all right, that you're using inheritance on, you always use the colon. In Java, when you're doing inheritance, you use the word extends. When you do an interface, you use the word implements. All right, why? Because that's just the rule that the people who made the language came up with. So I'm going to put a bunch of stuff in here, and you're going to look at it and you go, well, you already had this. Yeah, so if you want to dig it out from one of the other programs, you can, but I'm going to put in, I'd say, about 25 or 30 lines of code right now. As soon as they get all put in, I'll go back and we'll go over them. Probably out of the 25, there's only 2 or 3 we'll actually have to go over, because almost all of them are constants. Okay, so I think you'll understand those fairly simple, fairly well without really any kind of explanation. And they will change. I know we've had these. There's going to be probably about 10 to 12 that we have not used yet after we do these. I'll just let you start with those, okay? In a minute, we'll go over just a little bit of changes that we have in here. All right, hopefully, max non-OT, the OT rate, min hours, max hours, min rate, and max rate. And I guess I left one off. There's def rate. I need one more in here. Sorry. You may have figured this out already. You may not have. Def is just short for default. All right, so if we don't specify in hours for our hourly employee, they'll default to 40 hours. Does that make sense? And they will default to $25 an hour. All right, I changed the numbers around a little bit. A lot of this stuff I do during the summer. It's just me here and I get bored, so I just sit there and start doing other stuff. So, all right, so does everything else in there make sense to everybody? Is there anything in there that doesn't make any sense to anybody? What we're going to end up having in just a couple minutes is this. We're going to create a special kind of class that's going to be called payroll. We could call it employee. That would have actually been a better name, but since I made it payroll, I'm going to keep it payroll. And underneath this, we're going to have hourly, and we're going to have commission, and we're going to have salaried, and we're going to have piecework. And what we're going to do in payroll, it's going to be a special kind of class that's called an abstract class. It's abstract, and what that means is you can't create an object from it. We've been doing that. We did that in the last program. But all we're going to put into payroll basically is that every employee has three things: a first name, a last name, and a social security number. That's it. So any class that's going to implement iPayroll is going to be able to use this stuff, and any class that extends payroll will have those three things. If that doesn't make sense, that's what we're going to be doing for the rest of the period. So hopefully it'll start making sense. And if it doesn't, please, by all means, ask. All right? Okay. Okay, I wanted to check something that was in here. Let's see if I put that in there or not. I did. Okay, that's okay. All right, so these are things that are going to be specific to our hourly employees, the ones that I showed you right there. Next are the things we're going to have for our commission employees. Okay, so they'll look similar, but they'll have, of course, different names. And again, I know I've said this kind of thing to you before. These are arbitrary values. So I made the minimum sales somebody was going to get. This might be a week, it might be a month, it might be something else. 0, and I made the maximum sales be $1 million. This could be adjusted if we needed to adjust it. All right? All right. Hopefully you can look at these and they make sense. But just to go over them, we're saying that if somebody doesn't work, or maybe they're a brand new employee and they're not working where they're actually doing any sales yet, but they're on commission, all right, that the minimum sales they can have are nothing. They made no sales. The maximum we're supposing is $1 million, all right? Again, this could be adjusted up or down on an as-needed basis. If we go and create a brand new create a brand new commission employee, and we don't give them a sales, it'll default to $10,000. Does all that make sense? All right. Same kind of thing with rate. The minimum rate somebody can make for their commission is 10%. That's 0.1. The maximum rate they can make for their commission is 33%, 0.33. Again, if we create a brand new commission employee and we do not give him or her a commission rate, it defaults to 25%. All right. Next are salaried, and that's pretty simple. There's only 3 of these. Okay, again, hopefully, just looking at this, it makes sense. But somebody who's commissioned, we're thinking there's two different types of people. There's a straight salesperson and there's a commission person. So in other words, somebody who's in sales who's not on commission, they're making a straight salary. Does that make sense? It's kind of like the way I have it, in that they don't care if I come in at 5 to 8 for my 8 o'clock class or I come in at 4 in the morning. I get paid the same. All right? So the minimum that one of your salespeople can make is $1,000. So in other words, I'm looking at that as being 52 grand a year. The maximum they can make is $10,000, or about $500,000 a year. The default will be $2,500, which is a little over 100 grand a year. Now, hopefully, again, all of that makes sense. All right, and then we've got our piece workers, and there's about 6 of those. So I'll leave this where if you're still typing, you should be able to finish. That's an int, I'm sorry. That's an int. You'll know why in about 10 seconds. Oh, look at that. Okay, that's it for this file. Now, these are piece workers. I am looking at piece workers like this. I've never been a piece worker, so if my thought of them is wrong, sorry if you're a piece worker. This is the number of pieces that you'd make in an hour. That's the minimum number of pieces you'd make in an hour. 0. All right. I know that I've got a brother who used to work at Evinrude Motors when they were housed in Milwaukee, and they had guys in there who would literally, if they didn't feel that good, would spend an hour in the bathroom. And if they did that, they still made a minimum amount. Even if they made no pieces, they still made a minimum amount. That's what I'm looking at. So we're assuming you can't have a negative number, but at a minimum, you'd make nothing. The maximum you can make is 1,000. And you might say, well, why'd you make it 1,000? Well, we're going to suppose that these people are working together on a production line, and no matter how fast they're all working, that's just a maximum that can be put out in that amount of time. All right? Then the default number of pieces would be 100. All right? So this is their price per piece. At a minimum, they get a dime for each one they make. For a maximum, they get $1 for each one they make. Again, these numbers may be skewed. They may be, well, wow, these people can make X. I don't care. All right, we could adjust that by just coming in here and adjusting these constants. All right, that's not a big thing. And the default price per piece is going to be $0.25. So is there anything that's in this entire file that people either need to see again or you don't understand? Is this the time to ask? All right. Now, I don't know where exactly we're going to end up going in this class. I really don't. I mean, I've got a bunch of apps I've already made, And some of them I think you'll probably enjoy. Some of them will be like, oh, geez. But it doesn't matter. But one thing that we may end up doing is taking something like this and actually making it into an Android app. Now that's actually something that with some work on your part, you might actually be able to sell. All right, because you could say to a company, here, I've created this payroll system. That said, are there payroll systems out there? Of course there are. All right. So again, last call. Anyone have any questions on this? You'll notice the only thing that's in here, the only thing that we have put in here are constants. All right. Did we have to do it like this? No. But every single one of the classes that we create, all those classes, they will all implement Payroll06, or if you called yours iPayroll. That means they have access to everything that's in there. But one advantage is now all of our constants are in one local place. Even with 5, 6 more, if we had more classes, all of our constants are going to be in one central location. So if we have to change them, we know right where to go, which is one reason that you set it up like this. All right? All right. So we've got that done. Now let's go in and let's actually make ourselves a Java class. All right? And I'm just looking through here. Yeah, I do. I have my cheat sheets. Holy commission. Salaried. Yeah, that's all there. Why is that one wrong? Somehow I printed out the wrong thing, so let me just print this out. It's like 2 pages, so it won't take very much time, because the one I was going to go through otherwise is wrong. I don't want to give you wrong stuff. All right, so the next thing then that we're going to do is we're again going to right mouse click on our source folder, choose new, choose Java class. This will be a class, and the class will be Payroll06. Okay, so please create that while I go and get my handout. In an ideal world, what will happen is we will finish this today. Okay, so let's say we do. Tomorrow, we're going to add error or exception handling onto this. And it'll allow me to explain exception handling. That'll probably, again, take most of the period. If we get all that stuff done, then Thursday night, when I go home, I'm going to write a practice test for you. And I'm going to let you take it Friday. All right? And how much time you take, it'll differ from people. But around 3 or so, I'll show you what I did and what I'm looking for. Does all that make sense? If we can keep to that, then Monday of next week, we'd have a regular hands-on test. It would be your first one. You can use this. You can use anything we've done. You know, a lot of you are probably going to get a very high grade because it's not going to be all that different from what we've been doing. All right, but ideally I'm going to have 2 problems on there. They're going to bring together everything that we've had in these examples. All right, okay. So I want this to be a special kind of class, okay? And that is, I'm putting the word abstract in front of it. So it's not a public class, it's a public abstract class. Now I'm going to say something, and either I know at least one of you is going to think, you already told us this. Okay, then I did. All right? Imagine that what we have up here on the board, imagine that it wasn't this. Imagine it was an animal hierarchy. So on the top there we had animal. And then underneath that we had cat, we had dog, and we had horse. With me? All right. Then under dog, we might have, German Shepherd, Saint Bernard, etc., cats, etc. If I wanted to find out the different horses, I would ask Abby, all right, because I'm sure she could tell me. But I'm not that big on that stuff, okay? But you get the idea? The idea is if we had animal up on the top, that is so generic, you wouldn't probably tell somebody, hey, guess what? I went out and bought an animal yesterday. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That's like you wouldn't probably walk into a bank and say, I'd like to open, if you walked in and said, I'd like to open an account, what would the person say to you? What do you think the first thing the person, whoever you talk to, would say to you? What kind of an account? I don't know, just an account. That doesn't make much sense. You've got checking accounts, you've got savings accounts, you've got IRA accounts, etc. All right? So the reason I'm telling you that is payroll here, which I could have called it employee. I probably should have, but I didn't. It's so generic in nature that we're not going to create one of these. We will create hourly employee objects. We will create commission employee objects. We will create salaried employee objects. We will create piece worker employee objects because they're a specific type of object. And they'll each have their own class, all right? But payroll is so, not ambiguous, but it's so general. When you've got a class like that, that's that general, you typically make it abstract, all right? What you're going to see in here is it's not going to look that different from a lot of the stuff we've done until we get to the bottom of it, all right? And I'll be able to explain the stuff to you at that time. All right. So again, it's not real long, and as I mentioned, it's I don't know, 70, 80, whatever lines, and we've already done some of this stuff. Sorry. So if you want to go back and copy from what you had before, do whatever you want to do. It's not that big a thing. All right. The key takeaway from this is if you remember it yesterday when we did this, remember this? An example like that? That right there is creating a brand new payroll object. It is of type Payroll05, and the name of the object in this case is Sandy. What makes this the creation of a new object is that word. New means I'm creating a new object. It's called instancing or instantiating an object. That's what we're doing. The reason I'm telling you that is you cannot create an object of type payroll because it has the word abstract in front of it. Everybody get that? The opposite of abstract, we don't use the word, but the opposite of abstract is called concrete. All right? Again, why they chose that word, I'm not sure, but sometimes you'll see that in different textbooks. All right. So we've got this abstract class. We're going to only have 3 data members in there. Now, you're all smart people. What is SSN? Social Security number. Okay? I do want to mention something. I said this before. I know I have. I'm saying it again. We're doing this stuff together, but you are doing the inputting. If you decide, yeah, I'd really like to put this in my portfolio, do it. You're not hurting my feelings, and by not doing it, you're not hurting my feelings. But if you want to, especially if you think that eventually you may apply for a job as a Java programmer, I would go and add some comments in here. Did you all hear me? I've got comments in mine. All right? And most of mine are double what yours are, because I've got quite a few comments. But I figured if we did that, we'd still be on like program 2. And I don't want to do that. All right? But I'm just telling you that you may want to go back and look at this stuff, revisit it again. All right? Okay. Now, anybody remember, I'm asking you, if I say here public payroll, and try it again. Public payroll 06 paren. Anybody remember what that thing is called?
A function?
It is. It's called a method, but it's a special kind. It's a constructor. What do we want to have happen? What do we want to have happen when we create a new payroll 06 object and we pass in nothing? Nothing. Yeah, we're going to set it to that default stuff. Remember those def things that we had before? All right. So we're going to come in here and we're going to say, and if you say, hey, it didn't work, just hold on a second, okay? So let's go in here. We put all this stuff in here, and I'm going to say first name equals, what do we call it? I think it's just def first name. Def first name. All right, it's red. We'll look at Y in just a second. Last name equals def last name. Okay, and I don't even know if I made a default social security number. I don't think we have one in there. So for the social security number, we'll just set it equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. Okay, I mean, that's stupid, but just so you see there's something in there. Okay, now, the first two that are in there, I think you'd agree with this, that the first two that are in there, they're red. Meaning they have, the system doesn't know what def first name is. It doesn't know what def last name is. All right? But notice if I come back over here to this line, and I can put it on the same line, or I can put it on a new line. I'm going to put it on a new line because I might run out of room otherwise. I'm going to say implements again, mine is Payroll06. Yours might be just iPayroll. Well, that's pretty interesting. Let's see. iPayroll, there it is. Huh. Cannot resolve symbol. Yeah, I get that. Create constants field in Payroll06.
Yeah, we didn't add
Did we not put in the default first name? Okay. Okay. Well, then we've got two choices. If we want to have a default first name for everybody, we'd put it in iPayroll. Does that make sense? If for some reason we were going to set it up differently for different kinds of employees, we could put it in each file. Thank you for telling me that. I'm going to go back to our payroll, our iPayroll. Okay. And I'll just put it all at the top. And I'm going to say MISC, miscellaneous constants. All right. Static, string, def first name equals first name unknown. We did this yesterday. Static, string, def last name equals last name unknown. And static, we're going to make the social security number a string. And you know what? We'll actually make it SSNU. Because if somebody's got a social security number with letters in it, that should send a signal something's funky someplace. So please add this. This is one of those times you may or may not believe me. I screwed up, but I'm glad I did. And I'm glad you guys figured out what the problem was. What I want you to understand is these constants that we're defining in here, in this interface, are now going to be available to every one of the files that we have, including our regular payroll file. All right, so add those 4 lines if you would. I'll give you a second. Some of you look like you're still typing. And what we'll do, we're going to create the payroll, the regular payroll class, then we'll take a break. After we take the break, we're going to create hourly, commission, salary, and piece worker. And I'll look at you, and if you all have that look on your face like, God, I need a break, then we'll take another break. All right? Yes?
Didn't we just put the constants in the other programs like we've been doing?
The question was, couldn't we put these constants? We can put them any place, but I'm putting them in one place, and I'm going to use them in 5 other places.
Okay, why an interface?
Why an interface?
Yeah.
Because typically you put your constants in an interface. All right?
Okay.
That's not a great reason, but I'm just giving you the reason. Okay? There's other stuff you can put in there. I'm just trying to set this up so everybody gets what's going on. That's all. All right. Everybody has this, correct? Now look, if we go back, notice all these errors are gone. And I'm going to change that back to def SSN here. Okay? So what that says, okay, now just so you know, I don't think this one, I didn't even write this in mine. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I'm putting that in there as, for lack of better words, something precautionary. All right? I have had people look at my code during the time I was a programmer, and even a little bit here, and when I was working at Blackhawk, and say, man, you're way too defensive. You just said, are you really that kind of person that you're doom and gloom? No, but I've been screwed over a few times because I didn't put something in there that checked for an air condition. All right? I'd work with people and I'd say, should we put an air check? Oh, it'll never happen. Then it did. All right? And again, when that kind of stuff happens, you're the one at fault. It doesn't matter. You can come up with the best excuse in the world, but you're still the one at fault. I've said this before. It's like, you got a baseball team with 25 people on it, and all 25 might suck. And if they do, within a year or 2 years, they don't fire the 25 people, they fire the manager. And that's pretty much, when you're writing code, that's what you are. All right? So, all right. So let's do, and if you want, I can put the comment in here. You already know this. This is called our no Arg constructor. All right, so we've got that. And now I'm going to put in what I have been calling, at least, the full Arg constructor. Remember, look on the screen, please. Why am I getting that error? Okay? Yeah, you can put your mouse over it and figure out. I'm asking you, why are you getting that error? Yes. Because you already have one by that name. One of the first-year students this morning in the C# class, and I don't even think he'd mind me saying it, it's nothing terrible, but we were talking about constants and we were talking about variables. One of his constants, he named the exact same thing as his variable. And then he said to me, why am I getting errors on both these? And it got to the point where I was able to ask him, or basically, you tell me why. And he's like, oh, they have the same name. Yeah. But it's not even just the same name. The key thing in here is, this is what's known, what goes in there, that's the method signature. The method signatures must be different. So for this one, we're going to have the 3 strings. String, FN for first name, string, LN for last name, string, SSN for the social security number. All right? So, thank you. Now, you might remember this from yesterday. You might not. Don't type this. Remember, we can come in here and we can set this. We can do our stuff. I showed you this yesterday where we went in and right in the constructor, we did our validation. We can do that. But then we're going to repeat it later in our set routine. So what I'm going to call right here, I'm going to call set 3 times. Set first name, and I'm going to pass in the first name. Set last name, and I'm going to pass in the last name. And set, social security number, and I'm going to pass in, I guess it'll look like this, and I'm going to pass in the social security number. You all already know the reason that these are in red are because they have not yet been written. You all know that already. We've looked at that before. We have talked about that before. All right? So, if you remember from yesterday, we're going to let the system write them for us right now. So go down right after the curly brace that ends your second constructor, hit enter a couple times, go into code, under code, choose generate, under generate, choose getter and setter, and under getter and setter, choose all 3 of these. If I did it too fast, I'll do it again. In your menu that's up here, choose code. Under code, choose generate, the 4th one down. Under generate, choose the getter and setter. And under getter and setter, highlight all 3 of these and click OK. And you'll notice as soon as we do, those errors went away. All right? Now, the gets, we're not going to have to touch. I want to show you something just so you know it, because maybe it's just me. Sometimes things kind of like, that's weird. But I just want to show you this. I like, when I write these, I like them to look like that. That's just the way I am. You say, well, you're weird. Okay. But I like them like that. The reason I'm telling you that is if I close this and I open it back up again, it's going to look like this. Some editors, when you make a change, they save it. This one doesn't. It reverts back to what it considers to be better syntax. Just so you know that. Maybe that doesn't bother you. Maybe it does. But like I said, just so you know. So we've got our get and our for our first name, our get for our last name, and our get for our social security number. So let's look at the 3 sets. All right? It'll be very similar to what we did yesterday. So I am going to come in like we did before. I could leave this as first name, but I'm going to call it FN. And I'm going to say just almost exactly like we did yesterday. All right? FN dot equals. All right, so in other words, if it's equal to the empty string, question mark, def, first name, we'll put this on a separate line just so you can see everything, colon, FN. That's all of it. That's the whole thing. Now, when we did this yesterday, I believe at least, we used UFN and etc. Now we're grabbing them from our interface. All right, notice we didn't get any error, and we didn't get any error. All right, and look, we said implements iPayroll. If we leave that off, we're going to start getting errors all over the place. We don't want that. Now, look on the screen, please. Okay? Don't type this, but just please look on the screen. I'm going to put something down here, and I'm going to put it in comments. I'm going to remove it in a minute, but I want you to see something. We could have written this. Look on the screen, please. This says if we entered the empty set. In other words, if the string was empty, use the default, otherwise use the first name. I would guess, probably people aren't going to do that often. Probably if you hire somebody, you know their first name and you know their last name. Probably. So we could have written that like, if this is not, then we could have said question mark FN colon def first name. Now please take a look at that and tell me, does that make sense? Because it's a matter of programmer judgment as far as how you write it. Now, that said, if you go and you interview for a job, I don't care if it's Java, JavaScript, anything with programming, if they give you a test, usually you'll have 1 to 2 hours to complete something. One of the things they're looking for, believe it or not, is stuff like this. Because they'll think, wow, you're assuming that that most of the time we're not going to know the first name? You really could have made a case that we should have written it this way. Because more often than not, you'll know the first name. All right? But it doesn't matter is what I'm telling you. The other thing, too, just so you know, I'm going to remove this. We could have written this like if first name dot equals, and then we could have said this, and we don't even need to say this, but I will anyway. This dot first name equals def first name, else this dot first name equals FN. I'm asking you this question. Does that make sense? All right. You may be told if you take a programming test, or you may be asked in a programming interview, explain how you would use the question mark colon or ternary operator in a program. So now I'm just showing you. All right. Some people never use it. They don't like it. They'd rather type a few lines of code than do this. It's all a matter of personal programmer judgment. I was impressed this morning because one of the new students, Angie, she asked a question that was a really good question. You know, it was like, why would you do this as opposed to this type of an idea? And what I told her is what I just said to you. It's programmer judgment. And she laughed when I said this. I don't think it's funny. But there are no Java police, just like there's no C# police. The chance, you know, it depends on where you're working, the complexity of your code, etc. But if you work for a small shop, there might be no one else who looks at your code but you. If you work at a big shop, it might be you write code, and then you have to have a design review where you get, and I've had these, dozen or more people look at your code. Their job, believe it or not, is to rip it apart. Especially if you're working on some kind of an application that's at all real-time sensitive. Why? Because they want it to work and run as fast as possible. All right? So I'm getting rid of this. So it's up to you. You can either leave it the way it is, or, okay, you can reverse it. I'll just leave it the way it is for right now. Okay? Now I'm going to grab this. Why? Because I'm going to come down to my set last name. I'm going to change this to LN. And now I'm going to put this in there. But these will be LN. Make sure if you do this, okay, make sure that says last there. Look on the screen, please. Make sure you change the one that I just put in there from first to last, and make sure you change the name of the constant rather from def first name to def last name. Okay? And then finally, I'll put it in one more time. Now, this worked out really well. Okay? So that's the one for the Social Security number. Please, again, please, just stop for a second and look on the screen. In this case, this, that word this there, that's mandatory. You have to use that. Why? Because the name of my formal parameter is the same name as the actual name for the field in the class. When that's the case, you must use the word this. And as I told you yesterday, there are many programmers who always use the word this anyway, whether it is required or whether it is not required. We've got to do two more things. If we work together, it'll take about 5 more minutes, then we're going to take a nice extended break. All right? You may remember from yesterday that one of the things that we did was we went in and we overloaded. Good point. Look on the screen, please. This is something I've been asked in interviews, just so you know. Okay. You've got Payroll06 right here with a no Arc Constructor, and Payroll06 here with a full Arc Constructor. What did you do to the constructor? The answer is I overloaded it. When you've got 2 copies of the same thing, but they have different, signatures, that's called overloading. What you'll also hear about, if not in here, probably in here, is what's called overriding. That's not the same thing. Okay? All right, so that's an example of an overload. What's in the signature is different, but the names are the same. Okay. Okay, so one of the things we overloaded yesterday, you may or may not remember, was the toString method. And this is good because I'm showing you this in a different way. This won't look like what we did yesterday. And believe it or not, that's a good thing. Those are percent signs, just so you know. All right. After you get done with this, we literally have one more line to type in, then we're done. We are overriding the toString method. We did this before, but remember how we made that formatter yesterday? We imported java.util.format or whatever the heck it was. I don't remember if it's a text or the util. But the point is, this is almost the way you do it in the C programming language. The S that's in there means it's going to be a string. The percent is a placeholder. So percent %S means that a string is going to go there. This one right there is going to hold the first name. This one right here is going to hold the last name. And this one right here is going to hold the Social Security number. Okay? And just so, I mean, if you put Jeff followed by Scott, people will probably figure out that's my name. But just to be sure, for the Social Security number, all right, I'll have a little title there that says SSN, and it'll be on its own line. All right? Right now, there's been nothing in here that we've done in these 60 or so lines that have made this really any different other than that implement from what we've done in the past. So let's change that right now. On your very last line, right before the ending curly brace, I want you to type in a single line that looks like this. Oops. Just like this. All right? And I'll tell you what, it's already 1:41. So rather than explain that now, come back by 2. And at 2 o'clock, I'll explain to you what that means, and we will continue on. All right?